I don't play with lions. I don't play with those. I don't even do roller coasters. Wow.
Well, hello.
Welcome to the Young Turks. Look at this. It's actually Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian. All right, good to have you back in the studio, Casper.
It is fantastic to be back, Cenk.
Okay, good.
Fantastic.
I love to hear that. We had some issues off air. Anyways, at the studio and stuff. All right, guys, amazing show ahead for you guys. Who's gonna win round two? Zoran Mamdani or the establishment? Andrew Cuomo's back. We'll get to that a little bit later. Barack Obama's back. Does he have useful advice for the Democrats? We're gonna find out. Rogan on Epstein, interesting. Trump on Epstein, interesting. A lot of interesting things about Epstein.
I've never believed that Epstein worked for Mossad more than I do at this very moment. And it's thanks to people like Ben Shapiro, who we'll be hearing from later in the show today. And all the other people who tend to be the consistent Israel defenders coming out to say, there's nothing to see here. We totally believe the government. You know, the government that we're always telling you to distrust, we totally believe what Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino have to say. Oh, fascinating.
It is remarkable,
it
right?
Is.
Like, if you thought, hey, that's a wild, outlandish theory, I don't know if that makes sense. When Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, and every ardent Israel supporter, not in real world, in the real world, what do people know about what Mossad and Israel is doing? You know, like, no, it's like they have this absurd thing of like, you can't say it's Mossad, it's anti-Semitic. Why is Mossad calling up every Jewish person in the world going, oh, here's our secret plans? No.
Mossad is not like the representative of all Jews around the world. It is an intelligence organization based in Israel. Okay, it is not a representative of Jewish people around the world.
And the CIA is not a representative of Americans, and they're not telling us their secret plans. Anyways, so even if you thought it was a wild theory, for every one of those guys, and Ben Shapiro said that he called Naftali Bennett, the former prime minister, was talking to him. So apparently he knows things we don't know, and for him to be like, Epstein's okay, it's fine, let's move on, It's strange.
Very strange. Well, we're gonna get to all of that later in the show, but I actually wanted to start off today with an update on our economy and some of the interesting data coming out from June, so last month, because it looks like inflation is picking up again, but if anyone's trying to fearmonger about June numbers, don't let them fearmonger about that. The results weren't as bad as expected, but still kind of bad, trending upwards, so let's get to the details.
Because of all of this, what will the Federal Reserve do in the next few weeks? According to many analysts that I've been speaking with this morning, it really takes the possibility of a rate cut off the table later this month because the Federal Reserve wants to make sure that inflation is not going to continue to accelerate before they cut rates. Remember, 2.7% is moving even farther away, Pamela, from the Federal Reserve's 2% target.
Well, new data that's been released by the Labor Department indicates that inflation did rise slightly in the month of June, which is sparking a bit of a debate among economists about whether President Donald Trump's trade wars and tariffs have already begun to increase consumer prices, or if there's something else at play. Now, before I get to the granular details here, I just want to note one of the major areas or two areas of inflation in the month of June were in regard to housing, which continues to go up in price. month after month for obvious reasons. We have a housing crisis. No government official, whether we're talking about the federal government or local governments, are really taking this seriously enough. Maybe Austin, Texas is a good example of a city that's kind of bucking the trend. They started building more housing, and housing prices have actually gone down in Austin as a result. But elsewhere in the country, we're not seeing that same Austin trend because we're not building enough housing. The other area where there was inflation that's not related to tariffs has to do with gas. Gas rose in price last month. Why? Oh, just because of that small 12-day war that Israel and Iran had engaged in, and also our part in it. So that had an impact on the oil market as well. Now, with that in mind, let's take a look at this graph using Labor Department data to kind of show you how much inflation went up in the month of June. So if you take a look at this, according to the Wall Street Journal, consumer prices rose 2.7% in June from a year earlier, which was faster than May's increase of 2.4%. Core inflation, which exclude volatile food and energy prices, was 2.9%, also in line with forecasts. And according to the Wall Street Journal, month over month, consumer prices rose 0.3% in June compared with May, as economists had expected. Core prices rose by 0.2%, slightly less than the 0.3% increase economists had predicted. And lending some credibility to the argument that economists have been making in regard to Trump's trade wars and how that's going to lead to inflation, you'll notice that the inflation was most prominent in areas like home furnishings and supplies, which rose by 1% in June compared with May. Obviously, we rely heavily on foreign imports for furniture and supplies. So we're talking about an industry that's very vulnerable to tariffs. Video and audio products also rose by 1.1%. Toys rose by 1.8%. We get about 80% of our toys from China, and so and clothing, by the way, a lot of clothing is made in other countries and imported in the United States. You'll notice an increase of 0.4% in the cost of clothes in June compared to May. So Cenk, I don't think it's surprising that these are the areas in which we're seeing inflation. I do think it lends some credence to the argument that Trump's tariffs are starting to have an impact on consumer prices.
Yeah, so remember he famously said, you don't need $30, you only need $2, because he knew that the price of toys was gonna go up because 80% of them are produced abroad. So now the most important part is Trump is pressuring the Federal Reserve to lower the rates, which stimulates the economy. But they were reluctant to do that because they said, well, what if inflation goes back up? Then if we lower the rates, that'll actually compound the problem, and it'll actually greatly increase inflation at a time when it was already rising. And so because of the tariffs, we're not sure. Now we're a little bit more certain the inflation has re-begun, right? And so now the Federal Reserve, that's why in the beginning, Anna alluded to the Federal Reserve going, well, okay, now I guess we're definitely not going to lower rates, because if we lower rates when inflation is going up, it's going to be way worse.
Yeah, it's going to heat up the economy even more. Yeah.
Right. So that's why when Donald Trump, I don't know if at the end everyone will agree or not, but he's such a simple-minded man. And I know I still have to convince a lot of people of that. But like for him to understand the simple concepts of, yes, if you cut interest rates, the economy gets stimulated. You understand that, he does, okay? Now, but if you overstimulate the economy, the inflation goes up. So if inflation is already rising, prices are already rising, if you cut rates, you'll overstimulate the economy, and then you'll have out of control inflation. Trump doesn't understand that. He's so simple-minded, he doesn't understand the simplest economic concepts. Because if he understood that right now, he'd be telling the Federal Reserve, don't raise rates. I'm sorry, don't lower rates, right? And so he's like, lower rates, I want better economy, lower rates. You schmuck, it's gonna make it worse for you. You still have 3.5 years left.
Right, and I mean, he has, and it's not just the Trump administration. We've had terrible economic policies for several administrations in a row now. But with Trump, think about the whole picture here, right? So he just cut a ton of revenue that would go into the federal government in the form of these massive tax cuts in that giant omnibus bill that they just passed. he's trying to make up for that revenue by, of course, cutting Medicare, cutting food stamps, things like that. But on top of that, by upping the ante with tariffs, which, yes, tariffs do increase revenue for the federal government, but they decrease your disposable income or your income in general because you're paying a lot more for products that are being imported to the United States. And I guess Trump's solution to this is make borrowing cheaper, which again will overstimulate the economy, which is why Jerome Powell has been standoffish about cutting rates further. He's kind of sitting and waiting to see just how much Trump's trade wars are going to impact consumer prices. But it's just more of this borrow, borrow, borrow. It's okay, more debt for Americans. That's the way we're going to solve everything mentality. And I don't think that's the right mentality to have. Consumer debt is already at record levels.
Yeah, no, this is look, right now it's not a disaster. Right now it's a modest increase in inflation.
Right.
But if he keeps going this direction, but luckily he won't, I don't think he'll be able to move the Federal Reserve. But if he moved the Federal Reserve to cut rates, then you're talking disaster. Because the worst of the tariffs still haven't hit. He keeps delaying them and delaying them and delaying them. So like if you're thinking, the big tariffs and then inflation only went up a little bit. No, brother, they haven't even begun yet. August 1st is when he claims the tariffs will start. Look, he could chicken out like he always does, right? And maybe we never get any of these tariffs. There's already some, obviously,
yes.
And that's partly what's causing this. But we don't get the mega ones, the 30%, 40%, et cetera.
I don't know about that because this is such an underreported story. But the trade negotiations have ended with Vietnam, and you want to know what the tariff is for anything produced in Vietnam and imported to the United States? It's 20%. Okay, anything that was produced in a third country, shipped to Vietnam and then shipped to the United States will be tariffed at 40%.
Yeah, so look, these are, either he's gonna have to indefinitely delay them, or at some point he's gonna say, all right, there's no deals, or there's half a deals, and those deals are already like monster numbers, right?
Yeah, huge.
So if he actually goes through with the majority of the tariffs, then those numbers are gonna be way higher, right?
And so, economists who argue that the tariffs are going to be absorbed by the consumers are looking at this data and saying this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to wait and see what happens in July. One area that's really interesting here, though, is what happened to the price of new vehicles, so new cars. And what the data show is that new cars actually fell by 0.3% in June in terms of price. And there are multiple different reasons for why this might be. It could be due to companies essentially rushing to stock up on their inventory prior to the tariffs hitting. Or maybe Americans actually decided to purchase the new cars prior to Trump's original, tariff negotiation deadline, the one that he announced on Liberation Day, which I believe was supposed to be July 9th. Now it's August 1st. And there's also some argument that companies are eating the costs, which is why the inflation hasn't really hit consumers yet. I'm less likely to believe that, considering how unbelievably greedy our companies are. I mean, the whole reason why they're manufacturing products abroad, or why that started in the first place, was to exploit cheap labor to keep their costs down. But one other thing I want to just note is, going back to what Cenk was saying about interest rates, it is unlikely that this data will do anything to persuade Jerome Powell to lower interest rates in the month of June. And while inflation in June wasn't earth-shattering, Trump is ramping up his trade war. It's important to know that. So on Saturday, Trump said that the US would start charging 30% levies on goods from Mexico and the European Union beginning on August 1st. That's the new deadline. On Monday, Trump threatened 100% secondary tariffs on Russia if it didn't reach a peace deal with Ukraine. And also I should note that Trump is threatening additional tariffs on so-called BRICS nations. These are countries like Russia, Brazil, who are attempting to dethrone the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Trump is saying that he's gonna slap those countries or any other country that does business with them with 10% tariffs. And Goldman Sachs economists estimate that the US consumers will end up paying 70% of tariffs' direct costs. Walmart said in May that it would be forced to raise prices in response to tariffs, and clothing brand Ralph Lauren administration has also said it was considering price increases. But Cenk, what's really interesting about this is there was a lot of fear and a lot of concern about Trump's tariffs in earlier months. But apparently recent polling shows they're not as concerned. People are not as, small businesses especially, are not as concerned as they previously were. Why do you think that is?
Oh, I know why. Because Trump always chickens out. So they believe that Taco Tuesdays is every day. The markets, and I think they're wrong, but the markets are absolutely convinced that Trump is bluffing completely, and he's not going to do any of the major tariffs, right? So I have mixed feelings about that. I think that he's a giant bluffer, but he thought he could bluff the whole world, which is going to bring us back to BRICS in a second, but it didn't work. And the world is now going, yeah, no, we're not going to do those deals. Now what are you going to do, right? And so either he's going to completely taco, right, and just get rid of most of them, especially now that the tax cuts have passed and he doesn't need that as an excuse, et cetera, or he's going to dig in. If he digs in, that's when we hit a disaster. And I want to actually go to one of our members here because they made a really good point that I want to address. I love all your handles, they're all hilarious. Mr. Scruffy04 has written down on Twitch, because we do a serious news show. Even if Trump reversed all the tariffs, the damage is done. We're an unreliable trading partner to the rest of the world now. See, but that's the smartest audience in the country. That's right, because what's happening now, as Anna explained with the BRICS, is they're now trying to find a way around America. Okay.
There's also something known as the Basel reforms. I'm not 100% informed about this, so bear with me as I try to explain it. But one of the reforms is they essentially want to go back to not necessarily the gold standard, but move away from printing money. You know what I mean? So have currency tied to gold, because you can print currency, but you can't print gold.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that's going to work.
So
but
that's a much longer and complicated conversation. But what if BRICS includes India and China? BRICS is gigantic, right? And so all they need is basically Europe and Japan and South Korea, and they're like, then America becomes an afterthought.
By the way, it would be absolutely disastrous for America if the US dollar is no longer considered the reserve currency. By the way, rather than investing in, American currency, you have the global markets kind of moving away and instead investing in gold. So that's like a current trend that's happening. And these Basel reforms are apparently gonna play a big role in that. I'm gonna do an in-depth segment on that for tomorrow's show so you guys can understand and like what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, so last thing, guys, for me on this is that, look, Russia's part of BRICS, and when they invaded Ukraine, we got to bully them in a lot of ways. So we got to do sanctions, maybe freeze some bank accounts, grab some yachts, and have the world unite against them, right? But if the world unites against us, because we have a maniacal president that is trying to go back 120, 30 years in the tariff regime, right? And they stop using the dollar, oh my God, then our interest rates are gonna go up, our debt payments are gonna go way up, our debt's gonna go up overall. We're gonna be on super tough economic times. So we've got a toddler in the White House like playing around with things that he could break and shouldn't be broken. I mean, super last thing is that this is exactly the debate that I had with the right wingers right before the election. And Dan Holloway from Drinking Bros said, I know he's a bull in a China shop, but we hate the China shop so much we're gonna send him in. And I thought that was a terrible idea. This is what a bull in a China shop does. He breaks things, and a lot of things he shouldn't break.
Trump is notably worse in his second term compared to his first term. He played around with tariffs in his first term, as we've said a billion times on this show before. There was a lot of worry about that, but the tariffs were way more targeted. Some of them were so successful that Biden kept them in place and expanded upon them, especially the tariffs in China. That's not what's happening here. His tariff policy right now is, oh, I'm the best, I'm the strongest, and I can just bully every country on the international stage to play by my rules.
Because there's no brakes in the car.
But as we've seen with Japan so far, as we've seen with other trading partners, no, they're not willing to cower to Trump. They're not bending the knee, and they want favorable terms for their own consumers in their own country and their own companies. So we'll see how this all plays out, but right now, not really looking that great. We gotta take a break. When we come back, Joe Rogan has spoken out, shared his thoughts on this whole Epstein cover-up. You don't wanna miss it. We'll be right back.
I like tacos.
All right, back on TYT. So let's go to YouTube members. Liz Smith says, look at sharp today, Cenk. I see you took Ben's suggestion with the top button too, nice.
Yeah, you look good today.
Thank you, that's so funny you guys say that. Because it's the type of shirt I'm wearing and I was about to change it, but I ran out of time. So thank God I didn't change it. Okay, I'll have to wear these type of shirts more often.
What don't you like about the shirt?
No, I like the shirt a lot. It's just, I don't know that it should go with button-down jacket or blazer because it doesn't have much of a collar. But actually, without the collar,
I like it.
Looks. I think it could look. It might look better. I don't know.
You look like an Italian.
I look a little bit more Italian,
Yeah,
right? I look
yeah.
a little bit more trendy. All right. Well, thank you both of you, you and Liz. Appreciate it. Now a lot. Oh, look at that. Another one too. There's more coming for you. But Bachelor Boys, no ring, just fire breathing wings. Fun, writes in, love Cenk new black polo shirt and good to see Anna back. Trump hit every country with tariffs but never started building factories. No plan, no jobs, just empty talk to keep his gullible base cheering. So look, the talk about the factories is so important. He's like, okay, we're gonna rebuild manufacturing. Who? Who's building the factories? Who's rebuilding manufacturing? Did you figure that part out yet? Do you know which companies? Do you know how long it's gonna take? He never does his homework. There's never any planning. That's why you can see in the Epstein case, he comes out with outlandish, ridiculous things off the top of his head. But brother, now your own base is questioning you.
Well, let me just
plan for a second. God, he's so incompetent.
Let me add to that because other data from June shows that our economy added 174,000 jobs. Wow, that's really impressive. They're mostly government jobs on a state and local level. The private sector has really slowed down on providing job opportunities. And so I remember that was one of the things that Trump was very critical of during the Biden administration. Too many government jobs, too many public sector jobs. What happened to the private industry? We need to help them out. I'm gonna be the one who does it. Well, so far that's not the case.
Yep, just another dragon writes in. Cenk, in regards to Dave Smith pro-life comment, check data on pregnant women killed by the IDF. That'll put a dent in pro-life's argument against them. So in fact, guys, I was gonna do this in a story later and I'll probably repeat it, but I did look into it. The number of civilians killed on October 7th in Israel was 815. The number of kids killed in Gaza under the age of 1 is 870. They've killed more babies and toddlers than Hamas killed civilians overall. So that's the depth of the destruction and the genocide in Israel, which we'll talk more about later. Early Bird 42 says, welcome back, Casper, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Steel Farnsworth says, so glad Anna's back. Bernie says, welcome back, Anna. Jeffrey Dottie says, I love Anna's old school dresses.
Thank you. This one's not old school, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, yep, brother Rube writes in, Anna, so happy to see you. This is on TYT.com now.
It actually is good to be back. We just had technical issues behind the scenes right before showtime and I was like, but it's great to be here.
Yeah, Doodle Dragon Imran says, oh my God, Anna's back. The Pantheon perfected.
Oof.
A bit much, but thank you, we love it.
No, I love it.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Says you were missed, glad to have you back. And to be honest, my salt levels have been low as of late. So on my behalf, let her rip.
All right.
Trust me, she will. I'm pleading guilty to being too good looking. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and CD Norse Dog Dad. I don't know why I can never spit that one out. Thank you for gifting another Young Turks membership. And Frost King gifted 5 and included a note. I received a gift or two before, so I figured I'd give back.
Aww.
Well, that's beautiful of you. We appreciate that. We appreciate anybody who helps the show. That big, beautiful join button's right beneath.
Nailed it.
Below and beneath the video. All right, Casper.
All right, well, this one's a doozy. Let's take a look.
They've got videotape, and all of a sudden they don't. You know, you got the director of the FBI on this show saying there's no tape. If there was, nothing you're looking for is on those tapes. Like, what? Why did they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible? Why did they say that?
Joe Rogan has officially broken his silence on the Epstein cover-up. He did so on his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, and we should watch more of what he had to say.
Yeah, she said it literally, I think a week before you had the FBI director sitting here telling you there was nothing, right?
She said something about that there was like thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible crimes.
There is. And didn't the FBI dude say that there was nothing?
Cash Patel said there's nothing you're looking for. Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm going to push back.
Right. No, of course. I understand.
Obviously, he's saying what he has to say.
Right.
Mystery surrounds the Jeffrey Epstein files after Bondi claims tens of thousands of videos. Tens of thousands. Jesus Christ. The comment made to reporters at the White House days after a similar remark to a stranger with a hidden camera raised the stakes for President Donald Trump's administration to prove it has in its possession previously unseen compelling documents, or just bomb Iran and everybody forgets.
Just bomb Iran, yeah.
Everybody forgets about it.
So before I go to you, Cenk, I want to show the audience what they were referring to when they mentioned Cash Patel. By the way, Rogan's guest is Danny Jones. They're referring to something that FBI Director Cash Patel stated on Rogan's podcast just last month. So let's take a quick look at that.
There's been like 15 years of people coming in and creating fictions about this that doesn't exist. Where's the videotape of an Epstein Island of X, Y, and Z committing these frauds? Why haven't you given it to us? Do you really think I wouldn't give that to you if it existed?
Okay, so look, there have been a lot of weird, shady things going on, Cenk, and I am not pleased with the fact that I wasn't here. I was taking a break when all of this went down, okay? I wanted to be here to witness and comment on the circus, so I'll do it now. First of all, let's not forget the fact that the Trump administration released a video purporting to show Epstein's jail cell or prison cell. See, no one could have gone in there, no one killed him, it was a suicide, okay. Except there was like a full minute missing from the video, as Wired reporting made abundantly clear. Why did you guys doctor the video? What's that about? Like, what is going on? So obviously, this is the sloppiest cover up in American history.
No, Anna, Pam Bondi says that every prison video has a minute missing.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, is that just standard operating procedure? We gotta delete a minute from the video?
Yeah, every prison video I've seen has had a minute missing magically. Okay, but I don't know if you saw the Wired story, then they realized, no, the whole thing's edited. Like the minute missing is actually less relevant than the fact that they said it was raw footage, and it was not at all raw footage. They edited it together.
Yeah.
It's just it's a circus.
This is a post on X from Wired. They write, metadata from the raw Epstein prison video shows approximately 2 minutes and 53 seconds were removed from one of two stitched together clips. The cut starts right at the missing minute.
They're such clowns. Come on, guys. Come on.
Do they think we're all like senators who don't understand how technology works? Like,
right? Like, no, well, I hear it's a series of tubes and you can't figure it out. So, look, even we'll talk about this a little bit later in the show too. But even Candace Owens literally said to the Trump team, "Do you think we're stupid? Do you think your entire base is full of idiots?" And they'll just believe whatever you say.
They do think that.
Well, I mean, so what's interesting is that establishment like libs, right?
Yeah, rad libs, yeah.
Rad libs that are like,
think the base is stupid.
Right, the rad libs and the Trump team agree about how stupid the MAGA base is.
Yes.
Like, so they have both sides have enormous disdain for the Trump voters.
I got news for you, Cenk, okay? politicians in general have deep disdain for the American people. I think that's pretty clear in the way that they operate.
And guys, to that point, real quick, so 2 things about Biden. People are like, oh, I don't like it when you bring up Biden. Sad day for you, man. This is about, because we're talking about what is the American government, right? Because Biden also had a strategy called Trust Biden. And so that was for the bills, and they told progressives, don't, just like Kash Patel in that clip, do you not trust me? I'm saying that there are no tapes. Trust me, bro. And so that's what Biden did too. But and they then parlayed that into, now remember, when Joe Biden tells you that he's young and dynamic and he's the best Democrat in the country to run against Trump, trust me, bro. You're gonna have to trust me. And the Democratic voters in the beginning trusted him until they saw with their own eyes the debate. And now the Republican voters trusted Trump, but beyond the Republican voters, Joe Rogan and a lot of those guys trusted Trump.
Yes, yep.
But now this is kind of like the Biden debate, where they're seeing him melt down right in front of their eyes on the Epstein files and insult their intelligence.
Yeah.
Like the Democrats were insulting Democratic voters' intelligence.
Exactly, I'm glad you added that last part, because for anyone in the audience who gets upset at any insulting conversation toward Biden, why are you loyal to a guy who thought you were stupid? Okay, why are you loyal to someone, and why do you want to provide cover for someone who was so egotistical, so narcissistic, that he decided to run for re-election, thus creating the very situation that we're in this at this very moment?
Yeah.
Okay, no, you should never be loyal to any politician. They're politicians. What's wrong with you?
Yeah,
okay.
Now back to Rogan. So look, there was a theory that he was in a cult and he was MAGA and he was a fascist and he was all those things. And that so he was going to just bend the knee to Trump on everything. How's that theory working out for you? So look, people can make all sorts of excuses. They can move every goalpost in the world. Oh no, it's just about immigration. It's just about Abrego Garcia. It's just about mass deportations. It's just about Öztürk and Mahmoud Halil being taken away. It's just about attacking Iran. It's just about Epstein files. Bro, what's left? Okay, and by the way, it's just about adding 3.3 trillion to the debt. So there were things that Trump has done that certainly his base was very happy with. There's things that Trump has done that Rogan and the other guys, I assume, were happy with, but we haven't seen any of those clips. But I assume it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure there is. But are they now saying, what the F to like a half a dozen super important things he did? Yes, and you're seeing it with your own eyes.
Absolutely.
And guys, the reason why that's so important is because those voters that listen to Rogan and Theo Von and Tim Dillon and all those guys, and Andrew Schultz, who's now furious with Trump, right? They're there for the taking. And I don't mean that in some nefarious way if you're right wing, right? I'm just saying if those guys are mad at Trump because they have at least a populist strand in them, anti-war, anti-corruption, etc. And Epstein files is corruption, right? So, and they certainly are furious about that corruption. Then give them a real alternative. Don't be fake and don't try to trick them, right? Just say, hey, look guys, you want populism? That's what we do on the populist left. That's what Bernie's been about the entire time, right? And so, and now with, at least with Rebellion PAC, we shed the culture war stuff. There's no reason, like populistplank.com, those 6 things are supernova popular with everyone, left, right, and middle. So there is a real alternative out there. By the way, mainstream media never covers that. So why it connects to this conversation is when the Rogans of the world begin to turn as they are, take yes for an answer, go talk to them, and invite those voters to the right place where they actually belong. Not with establishment Democrats, not with establishment Republicans, and not with Trump.
Well, let's stay on topic, but move on to a different angle here because debates are being had, okay? And one of those debates took place recently between Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro on Megyn Kelly's podcast. Let's take a look.
I have the names of the people who are making the claim that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself.
You can't come to me and say, everybody I know says he killed himself. And then I respond saying, I actually have my own sources who say he didn't. And then you say, well, your sources are not valid because they won't put their names on it.
The same thing holds true for people who are making claims on the other side. Otherwise, I can claim that he was working for a cadre of space aliens who are blackmailing high-profile Americans in order to protect from a future invasion.
Megyn Kelly recently debated Ben Shapiro on the notion that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself while in prison. And while Kelly hasn't really made a definitive statement about anything related to Epstein, she wants more evidence, she wants openness and transparency. Ben Shapiro, interestingly enough, quick and pretty eager to buy the government's claims. Interesting. Now, the debate began with Megyn Kelly potentially breaking news here about some of what her sources have been telling her about Epstein behind the scenes. Let's take a look.
I have my own sources high up in the law enforcement, let's say, I'll just go that far, who say, not only do we believe he was an agent, but we don't believe he killed himself.
I mean, that's fine. And then they should come out and they should say that. And then they should say who's covering that up.
Okay, but this is what, Ben, they can't. I mean, there are a lot of people who say they can't, right? They can't because let's look at what the administration is saying right now. They don't want to be the one to cross Trump. Look, my position is, let's show us all the evidence so we can come to our own conclusions.
I have names of the people. So I agree with you, that's fine.
So Ben Shapiro says he has his own sources. And I want to go to that video next because it's interesting who he's relying on here. He names names. Megyn Kelly says, look, these are conversations I've had with sources off the record. I haven't gotten permission to share their names, so I'm not gonna do that. Shapiro's like, I got my own sources. I'm gonna name some names. So let's hear who they are.
I have the names of the people who are making the claim that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself and that the most gross, and sort of extreme of the conspiracy theories, just don't even call them conspiracy theories, the most sort of, extreme version of the theory is not true. I have names of the people who are claiming that. Okay, they are all in the administration.
You can't come to me and say, everybody I know says he killed himself. And then I respond saying, I actually have my own sources who say he didn't. And then you say, well, your sources are not valid because they won't put their names on it. Okay, who are your sources? Let's go down the list and then we'll talk about why they might be saying that.
My sources are the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, Dan Bongino, the Deputy Head of the FBI, and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General.
Your sources are the people that are alleged to have taken part in the cover-up? Okay, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, so look, he is now doing something that makes me think that he is super comfortable that the files are never, ever, ever going to be released.
100%.
Because he keeps saying in this conversation, but in other things I've seen him say as well, like, yeah, sure, I agree, they should release the files. He almost does it with a smirk, like, yeah, good luck with that, right? So I can say anything I want about it now because I know that Trump's not releasing the files, and obviously the Democrats never released the files. We got this, right? He seems like almost thrilled that the files are not released. And then he says, oh, are there people inside the government who say that it is intelligence agencies or that there really are clients? Well, why don't they come out then?
Actually, let's go to that video because I appreciate what Megyn Kelly says in response to his argument. Take a look.
You've got Kash, you've got Dan, and you've got Pam, and we've already discussed that memo in full detail. I'm talking about people behind the scenes who, prior to Trump taking office, I'm not gonna get too specific, but trust me, I have high-level sources who have said they don't believe any of that. Okay. So, and I'm not going to out them for purposes of convincing you, but you're telling me name them. No, I'm not going to. I don't have authorization.
I'm not saying
and then you say, well, I dismiss all of it because you won't name them.
Hold on, Megyn, I'm not saying you should name them. I'm saying they should name themselves because otherwise they are being complicit in one of the greatest cover-ups in the history of the American
Republic. That's easy for you to say, Ben. That's very easy for you to say.
Why is that easy for me to say? Why?
Because you'll have your job and you'll have your millions, no matter what they do.
Megyn, give me a break.
There are reasons not to cross the people who are in charge. And that's all I'm gonna say. And look, this is me not having drawn a conclusion. I don't know what the truth is.
And in addition to Shapiro still being able to enjoy his job and his millions, right? Or anyone who is part of the cover-up being able to enjoy their jobs and their millions. I mean, there have been a lot of strange deaths among individuals who were associated with Epstein as well, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But the other thing I'll just say is Ben Shapiro insists on just believing what Trump administration officials are saying about the Epstein files. Okay, but there is reason to not trust them, especially after they put out a doctored video of Jeffrey Epstein's jail cell. No? Is that not suspicious at all to Ben Shapiro? That doesn't make these government officials lose credibility, these cabinet members of Trump's administration lose credibility?
Yeah, so what he's saying is, look, most of us think that Epstein was killed because there's no video of the hallway. They put out a fake video of the common room. It doesn't make any sense. We said on the day of that if there was no video in the hallway, he was likely killed. And every part of their story is falling apart, etc. So keep that in mind as then Ben Shapiro grins and goes, oh, if they'd like to, they should come out and say it. Well, the last guy who had evidence, Jeffrey Epstein, got killed in an American prison, and both the Republicans and the Democrats said it was no big deal, and they covered up that story. So now you think it's no big deal for somebody to come out and say, yeah, I have all the evidence of either the CIA or Mossad or Clinton and Trump together doing all this when there's bodies everywhere. And the other thing is, why is Shapiro and Mark Levin and almost every Israeli supporter the only ones out there going, yeah, we gotta move on. We gotta move on. This is it, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. And so
they're adding to the suspicions that people like us have.
100%, like I wasn't nearly as suspicious until they started like panicking.
Exactly, exactly.
And so, but one more thing about that. So he says, oh, well, my sources are Donald Trump. What, don't you trust Donald Trump? No, so he's saying that in a taunting way, because forget the audience and the voters, a lot of the social media hosts and influencers are afraid of completely crossing Trump because they're worried about the reaction, right? So he knows that he could play that trick with Megyn Kelly, and Megyn Kelly has to at least go only halfway in that direction, right? She can't say, yeah, I don't trust Trump. So he's doing a rhetorical trick. But wait a minute, every time that Trump disagreed with Israel, Ben Shapiro came out and was like, this is wrong, this is outrageous, Trump is, what, you didn't trust Trump?
Yeah.
I thought you trusted Trump with everything. Watch, you'll see Ben Shapiro disagree with Trump a dozen more times in the next 3.5 years, right? And every time you can say to him, well, don't you trust Trump? Don't you trust Trump? No, it's just a debating trick, right? The reality is he doesn't trust Trump, he trusts Israel and only Israel.
Yeah, and look, one of the theories, and I was skeptical of this theory, but I warmed up to the idea after listening to the whole Epstein series from the Martyr Made podcast, because it's so well sourced and there's a lot of citations there that I looked into personally, and it just got me thinking, let's put it that way. But there's other elements of Epstein's life and death and the associates he had that make one believe, yeah, it seems like he was either working with Mossad or was an asset of Mossad's. So for instance, Alex Acosta, I've mentioned this before, who was the prosecutor in the Epstein case, took it easy on him and also gave him a sweetheart plea deal. And when he was asked about it after the fact, Acosta said, well, I was told to back off because Epstein was intelligence. Okay, that's interesting. And then there are other suspicious deaths of Epstein-tied individuals like model agent Jean-Luc Bernal, or Brunel, I should say, who was actually being investigated for supplying minors, girls to Jeffrey Epstein. He was actually a close associate of Epstein's. He also allegedly killed himself while in prison. And the cameras were also coincidentally off at the time that the suicide happened. I'm sure it's all a coincidence. The official Epstein autopsy said that it was suicide, right? That he hanged himself. But Epstein's brother said that upon further investigation, the bone fractures weren't consistent with a hanging. I don't know how much credibility there is behind that, but you also have Virginia Giuffre, I forget her last name specifically, but she was the one who accused Prince Andrew of assaulting her and being part of all of this. She's gone now, she's dead. She was.
I have one more. Ghislaine Maxwell's dad.
Robert Maxwell, who was tied to Mossad, that's well known.
Not tied to Mossad, he was Mossad. Right,
yes.
So a legendary Israeli spy. But around the time that the Epstein news was breaking, he fell off his boat in the middle of the ocean and passed away.
Yeah, that happens often.
It happens in Russia a lot, and now, and by the way, I mean, yes, I know.
Wow.
Of course, Israel would never do that because it's not like they've killed a record number of journalists. Oh, right, they did in Gaza. It's not like they've killed a record number of human rights workers. Oh, right, they did in Gaza. It's not like they killed a record number of children. Oh, right, they did in Gaza.
Or Americans.
Yeah, but what's hilarious to me is, look, do I know Mossad definitely did it? Of course not. I don't have secret intelligence from Mossad or CIA, right? And maybe it's the CIA, right? And that's also perfectly plausible.
Absolutely.
Right, but if you say to me, oh, how dare you suggest it might be Mossad? Well, Mossad would never do anything like that. I mean, you'd have to be like painfully stupid or the biggest liar in the world to say that Mossad or the CIA is so moral that they would never do something like this. So now I'm gonna go to Glenn Greenwald. So again, remember guys, this is never about religion, Jews, not Jews, right? Because Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin are, what's interesting about them is not that they're Jewish, it's that they're massive Israeli supporters. And they often say that they talk to government officials in Israel, and which to me sounds like they're getting marching orders from them, right? Whereas there's a lot of Jewish people in media that are totally in the middle. They're as surprised as we are, what the hell is going on? And then there's been the great advocates like Dave Smith, Glenn Greenwald, et cetera. So Glenn wrote in the other day, he's like, okay, so you're saying the Mossad angle is crazy. Hold on, number one of Epstein's closest friends was former Israeli PM, Ehud Barak.
Yes, yep.
And Barak visited him 30 times, okay? A key source for number two, a key source for Epstein's vast wealth, though mysterious, was from Les Wexner, whose primary life cause is Israel, okay? Huge donor to AIPAC. Ghislaine Maxwell's father, the billionaire Robert Maxwell, was a Mossad agent who mysteriously died after that was reported. Though Maxwell was British, Israel gave him a state funeral when he died. Also true, Yitzhak Rabin, the prime minister at the time, or earlier prime minister, attended. Epstein got the red carpet treatment when visiting Israel. And number five, Epstein bankrolled major investments in Israeli tech. And there's more and more, right? But I don't read that to tell you guys, I'm sure it was Mossad. I really don't know, right? I read that to you to say, like, is that one of the possibilities? Well, of course it is, right? And if you say no, the CIA is a possibility, Clinton and Trump are a possibility, MI6 is a possibility, but Mossad, why, they would never. Then you're being absolutely ridiculous.
Totally agree. All right, well, I want to talk about the Republican Party's role in this cover up and what they're doing in Congress to block the release of these files when we return.
I am scary, I am threatening.
I'm Darth Vader.
So let's go to Michael saying on Super Chat, there's no Epstein client list, there's no Epstein tapes or evidence, so he killed himself. He couldn't stand the thought of living outside of a jail with an elaborate and lavish lifestyle. Yeah, he was just about to be let go because there's no evidence at all. Nobody got raped at all. But then he said, forget it, I'm just kidding. My conscience is bothering me, even though, by the way, I didn't do it. And there was no clients and there were no tapes, right? And by the way, we're gonna talk about this in a little bit, but Ghislaine Maxwell, and people were joking around about, well, if there's no tapes and there's no evidence and there's no clients, why is she in jail, right? But now things are serious because she's doing an appeal and Trump just said all the evidence is fake. So they get to use that in court. The president of the United States said the evidence was fake. That's devastating, she might get out. It's just unbelievable.
Oh my God.
Okay, so we'll save that for a little bit later. So this one, I'm reading blind here. Bachelor Boys, no ring, just fire-breathing wings. I'm gonna shorten that going forward. Megyn interview, Ben Zionist feels like less a conversation and more like two teleprompters trying to out-condescend each other. It's like watching a debate club mirror itself and then argue who's more persecuted. Pathetic. Interesting. I thought actually Megyn, I watched the whole thing, was kind of light on Shapiro. I thought she was gonna be tougher on him. So
yeah, I think that she's way more skeptical of some of these theories about Epstein and whatever, but she's not dismissing them. She just wants to see more evidence, and she wants, to her credit, she wants the Epstein files. She wants them to be released, and has been very critical of the Trump administration, in particular Pam Bondi. But honestly, that's where I would criticize her the most, which is why all this focus on Pam Bondi and Pam Bondi only, right? Everyone in the Trump administration is in on this cover up. Every single one of them, prior to Trump winning his second term, were on the record talking about how these files need to be released.
Because Pam Bondi's a scapegoat.
Yeah, and like she's a clown. I don't have a problem with you attacking her. I'm just saying be more inclusive, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Titan writes in, completely off topic here, but apparently the new Superman movie is anti-Semitic because it's against nations committing genocide. Absolute insane take. Movie's good. Everyone should check it out.
Way to acknowledge that Israel is committing a genocide, by the way.
Yeah. So no, he's kidding. He's being sarcastic. So yeah, I watched it. Look, on that part of the movie alone, you should go watch it, because it's clearly Israel attacking Palestine, and they're kind of painted as the monsters that they are. I don't mean the Israeli people, I mean the Israeli leaders, right? And the US leaders.
Is this one of those situations where the art has a different, people interpret it differently, right? Like,
nah, it's super clearly Israel and Palestine.
Okay, well then I'm definitely gonna go see the movie.
Yeah, and I'm shocked that that movie came out, and credit to Hollywood, by the way.
Yeah.
And also there goes the theories, the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that Hollywood is run only by Jews, because if it was like a pro-Israel mission, they would have never released that movie, okay? So, okay, Jonathan Borzjani writes, and I think Megyn Kelly will fall in line, Candace Owens won't. Well, we're gonna give you both here and see what happens. All right, we'll be right back. Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Andrew Yogian, and James Singleton. So great to have both of you guys. We appreciate you hitting that join button. We love it when you're part of the community, and then we read your comments more. You get all of our content. You could also do it through tyt.com/join, where you get a couple of months off for annual membership. All right, Casper.
Well, we're not quite done with the Epstein files yet, because there's been some movement in Congress. Just movement hasn't been going in the direction that you would want.
I introduced today an amendment demanding the full release of the Epstein files. This is a question of whose side are you on? Are you on the side of protecting the rich and the powerful who've put their thumb on the scales of government to suck out millions of dollars while working class Americans suffer? Or are you on the side of the people? The Attorney General said on her desk was the Epstein file. And now she's saying, no, nothing to see, don't release it.
Well, House Republicans took that question from Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna and said, yeah, we'll represent the rich and the powerful over the American people, because they essentially blocked an amendment that Ro Khanna attempted to pass in the House Rules Committee that would essentially force the release of the Epstein files. So again, Khanna's amendment would have forced Congress to vote on whether or not the Department of Justice should release said files. And today, the entire House actually voted on that amendment, and we'll tell you about how that went down shortly, because that's a really important update to this story. But first, let's start with what happened in the Rules Committee, shall we? So all 4 Democrats on the committee voted yes. They wanted, and 1 Republican, I should note, voted yes on Khanna's amendment. 7 other Republicans, though, voted against the amendment, thus killing it, blocking it. Now, after the amendment failed, Khanna wrote the following. Rules voted 5-7 to block the full House from voting on my amendment to have a full release of the Epstein files. People are fed up. We are fed up. Thanks, Ralph Norham, Norman, that's the Republican who actually voted in favor of the bill, or the amendment, I should say, need to put the American people before party. Now, 7 Republicans who voted against the amendment were Virginia Foxx, a Republican from North Carolina. You also have Michelle Fischbach, a Republican from Minnesota, Aaron Hochin from Indiana, Nicholas Langworthy from New York, Austin Scott from Georgia, Morgan Griffith from Virginia, and Brian Jack from Georgia. We're gonna revisit these individuals in just a moment, but before we do, I wanna stop for a comment, Cenk.
Told you. What did I tell you this time? Ro Khanna, best guy in Congress. So look, I didn't start saying how good he was because out of nowhere, because I randomly liked the guy. He's not my uncle, right? As I used to say about Bernie. I started backing him because he's awesome. He put him to a vote. That's what I want. That's what we all want. Put him to a vote. Put him to a vote. By the way, if the Democrats ever get the House back, they better put the Democrats to a vote too. Okay, I want to see a vote on minimum wage. I want to see a vote on paid family leave. I want to see all these votes, okay? And I want to see a vote on Epstein again if the Democrats are back in charge. Because conveniently, whenever any party's in charge, they're like, Epstein, what name so? When they're in the minority, they're like, what about Epstein?
Exactly.
Right?
No, I'm so happy that you brought that up, Cenk, because I mean, if Democrats were so gung-ho about the federal government releasing the Epstein files, why didn't they vote on this during the Biden administration?
Yeah, so that's what I like about Roe, because he actually puts his money where his mouth is, or his votes where his mouth is. So he's like, okay, you guys want to cut the debt? No problem, I got a bill to cut the debt by $12 trillion. And it doesn't give anything to the rich, right? It actually gives to the average American. And it doesn't take away Medicaid or SNAP. And you look at it, you're like, damn, that's good, right? He's, oh, you want to lower drug prices? Why don't we take Trump's executive order, turn it into a bill? That way the courts can't knock it down and we have lower drug prices. So when he does it on this one, it grabs a lot more attention because, Epstein, etc. But that's beautiful, you put him to a test. So now what happened with the Republicans? They failed the test. So they're full of crap, and they're now, all those congressmen you just saw there are on the record as protecting the child rapists who were clients of Epstein.
Yep.
That period. There is no ands, ifs, or buts. And like I said, if the Democrats are back in charge, I want them on the record, right? So now it's an easier vote for Democrats to say, oh yeah, sure, let's see the Epstein files.
Yeah.
But I'll give credit to Ralph Norman, the Republican who did it. But one other thing you should know about that, the reason they had to kill it in committee is if it gets out of committee, then they all have to vote on it. And if the entire House has to vote on it, then it's gonna get super awkward as all of the Republicans who talked a big game through all those years are gonna go, no way, no, hide the files, right? A lot of them are starting to make preemptive excuses now. Sure.
So before we get to the full House, because this did make its way to the House, and the House did vote on whether or not the federal government should be forced to release the Epstein files, but nonetheless, in the Rules Committee, you have all these Republicans who voted no, 7 Republicans who voted no to block Khanna's amendment. And so you could argue that they're providing cover for child predators, okay? And I am making that argument. But on top of that, it's interesting who they're heavily funded by, where they get the bulk of their campaign contributions from. Let's take a look at AIPAC Tracker, shall we? Where you'll see the list of said Republicans who voted to block the release of the Epstein files. Fox and Jack have taken close to $200,000 from the pro-Israel lobby. Langworthy has taken almost $100,000 from the pro-Israel lobby. Then you have Scott, Griffith, Fischbach, and Hochin have each taken between $15,000 and $45,000 from the pro-Israel lobby. So, money talks, as we know. Oftentimes when we talk about members of Congress being bought, whether it's by pharmaceutical companies, oil industry, or in this case, the Israel lobby, you can take a look at the money, you could follow the money, and you can see how they behave when they're in Congress, how they vote. Now, Khanna's amendment, by the way, was brought before the entire House of Representatives today.
Before we get to that real quick, so if you're wondering why did they pay Virginia Foxx more than the others, the $194,000? Because committee heads get more money because they can block a lot of votes. What I love about what Ro Khanna did was they were trying to bottle it up in committee, but they couldn't do it. First he forced them to vote in committee, then the House. overall. So, and the higher you get up, the bigger the bribes get. So by the time you get to the leaders in the House and the Senate on the Democratic and Republican side, then you're talking millions of dollars from AIPAC. So that's how this game is played.
So you might be wondering, well, if this amendment got blocked in the Rules Committee, how did it make its way to the full House? Well, Democrats actually pushed to oppose a procedural vote, and if their push was successful, it would trigger a debate and a vote on Khanna's amendment. It would also have sidelined the Republicans' legislative agenda for the day. Now, the vote is almost always a routine party line vote, with members of the majority party voting in favor and those in the minority party voting in opposition. It represents a last chance effort for members in the minority to try and force consideration of certain legislation. Now, you have a lot of Republican politicians pretending like they care deeply about children, pretending like they care deeply about issues like pedophilia, child sex abuse, things like that. But in the end, Republicans united and supported the procedural vote, bringing the final tally to 211 to 210 along party lines, clearing the majority threshold that Democrats were hoping to avoid. And so Representative Ralph Norman, who supported Khanna's amendment in the Rules Committee, by the way, voted with the rest of his party on a procedural vote. Norman said he believes Attorney General Pam Bondi has an independent party that's looking at it, which he called the right course. Interesting. Representative Michael Cloud, a Republican from Texas, offered a simpler explanation. Republicans generally vote against such democratic procedural motions, and this time shouldn't be an exception. They just get the added benefit of protecting their daddy, Donald Trump, and the Trump administration overall in this big Epstein cover-up. And Representative Tim Burchett told Axios, it's just politics. It's not about protecting little children, and that ticks me off. No, what ticks me off, Burchett, is you have an opportunity here to not go along with your partisan hackery and do the right thing in pressuring the Trump administration to release these documents. There's no rule, okay? God didn't speak to you from the heavens above and tell you you have no choice but to engage in partisan hackery to prevent the release of Epstein files. You made that decision, okay? But so in effect, this is providing cover for child sex predators. Congratulations. These people are total clowns, absolute clowns. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump was asked about the Epstein files again today, and here's his response.
These files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden, and we went through years of that with the Russia hoax, with all of the different things that we had to go through. We've gone through years of it, but she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release.
For me at this point, the real question is this. Is Trump engaging in this cover-up because he's in the Epstein files, or is he engaging in these cover-ups because he's worried about assassination? And I'm being serious. Those are the two options in my mind at this point. That was a ridiculous statement. What was that?
No, he doesn't have to be worried about assassination if the CIA, but that one's less likely in the case of Trump. But or Mossad, the Israeli government said,
we've never had CIA assassinate presidents.
No, I hear you. He could be concerned about that. But if Mossad, like Israel, tells an American president not to do something, there's a 99% chance they're not going to do it. It's not like Biden released the Epstein tapes. What was his excuse? What's the thing that prevents American presidents from doing what American voters want in foreign policy? It's corporate donors for everything else, right? But it's usually Israel, right? So it's not like they can't stop an American president, they often do. So I'm not saying that that's definitely the answer, but I'm just saying that that is one of the other options, right? So, okay, I'm gonna come to Trump in a second because that was amazing what he said. But on the House vote, I just want you to be clear. So for all the Republicans making BS excuses of, well, it's a procedural vote and we didn't want to change any procedures and stuff. Okay, well then Representative Mark Weezy from Texas is offering up a standalone resolution, and he's like, let's just vote on this.
Right.
Okay, no problem, no procedural, nothing, right? You know how many Republican co-sponsors he has? 0. They're
It's
full
amazing.
of crap. They're all hiding it.
It's amazing.
Okay, and all the big, and wait, are the Republicans more at fault here than the Democrats? Yes. Number one, they're in charge right now. Okay. Number two, so don't give me any excuses. Number two, Biden didn't go around going Epstein files, Epstein files. Republicans went around Epstein files, Epstein files, Epstein files, right?
Yes.
Now they get in office, they're like, what name so?
100%. Okay, and by
cool.
the way, just going back to the procedural vote for a second, right? So the argument that they would make is, well, we don't want to give Democrats, we don't want to give the minority any type of upper hand as it pertains to passing legislation. What legislation? You guys already passed the only legislation you care about, which is tax cuts for the rich, mostly, okay? A continuation of some of the tax cuts that Trump implemented in 2017 that do benefit working class people. Some tax cuts for working class people that will expire in 4 years, because of course they will. What else do you have on your agenda, Republican Party?
Oh, no, there was
nothing. You already got your goodies. You already did right by your donors. You're not gonna do crap for the American people. Let's just keep it real.
And they couldn't take a quarter of a day to discuss the Epstein files and release them. They're way too busy doing absolutely nothing.
So busy.
Okay, so what did you guys pass today? What did the Republicans pass today? Come on, guys, you're a joke, okay? So now to Trump. So he's now, so he said it on Truth Social, we covered that. Now you saw him on tape. He's saying that the files are fake. That Obama and Biden and James Comey created a fake Epstein file, and that's what they've been talking about this whole time.
Totally, that's exactly what happened.
But wait, if it was fake, why did you talk about it like it was real? Because you were already president. So if you were already president and Obama created it, then you would know that it was fake. So why did you pretend they were real? But then later, your administration, like less than a week ago, said that they don't exist. So which one is it? Are they fake or do they not exist? What is this? This is like the worst lies in American history.
Sloppiest cover up.
Yeah, and he's so sloppy that, again, even MAGA and half their hosts are like, awkward, because there's no way to defend this. There's no, okay, so then he says Obama, so he knew in his first term apparently, but okay, let's say that it's Biden. So if it's Biden and he created a fake Epstein file, took out the Democrats, for example, and just kept Trump and the others in it because it's fake, why didn't he use it? Like, I know if it's the real file, why Biden might not use it. CIA tells him not to, or Clinton's in it, etc., right? But if the dossier is fake and it was meant to incriminate Trump and Biden did it, why didn't they use it before the election against Trump? None of it makes any sense. And by the way, I never thought, I thought Trump palled around with Epstein. I have no idea what he did. Am I positive he's on the list? No, not at all. I think the intelligence agency is the more likely answer, but the way Trump is acting makes me think that he's on the list.
Totally.
Because he's like, no, if you see any names on there, they're all fake. It was Comey, it was Russia hoax. Dude, you're in a cold sweat panic over this when you're not even releasing the files.
Can we just, and let me just say this, and then we gotta go. If it is true that Jeffrey Epstein was part of a Mossad or any foreign government, blackmail operation in an effort to have blackmail material on individuals in the highest echelons of power in the American government to ensure that our politicians do everything and anything the Israeli government wants, we should be furious about that. That means we're not free. That means we don't live in a free society. We don't live in a country where our vote matters at all, because no matter who you end up electing, right? The government is full to the brim of disgusting pedophiles that Israel and Mossad has blackmail on.
Look, whoever did this.
How does that not infuriate people? That's why people want to see the goods. We need to know what's going on, because if there's any confirmation that happened, first of all, think about how disgusting that is, okay? To, in some cases, based on the allegations, kidnap, okay, minors, young girls, and use them as bait to get blackmail on American politicians so Israel can get its way. Well, with what's happening in the region right now in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Look, the more this develops, the more I'm starting to believe that theory. Because the people who love to defend Israel, they're panicking the most about the Epstein files getting released. Okay, they're the first, they're the most eager to just believe the lies coming out of the Trump administration about, the Epstein files not existing and all the other BS we've gotten from them so far. There's something really weird going on here. And if you're an American who takes pride in living in a democracy and a free society, you should be concerned if this is what's going on, because that means you have a foreign country dictating our foreign policy.
Yeah, so look guys, I got an interesting theory on that in a second. But I've got it, so number one, to Anna's point, I mean, it doesn't get any worse than this. Whoever did this is purposely knew they were going to have rich and powerful men rape underage American girls so that agency can have more power. Could be the CIA, for example. If the CIA did that, they have betrayed the American people at a level that is unforgivable, okay? To say, we're pretending to serve America, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna use American girls as rape fodder. So if the CIA did that, we should all be furious at that agency. If another government did that, funding them, are you kidding me? Like, we should consider going to war against a country like that.
I mean,
okay, so we're not gonna do that. I know us, we're not, and we should, forget it, I don't want war. My point is not that we do go to war. My point is that country, if it's a different country, has betrayed us beyond measure, okay? And so, all right, now, number two, Republicans, you're telling me that the rape of those girls, we can't find out anyone who did it because of procedure? Because you were gonna lose a half a day or a quarter of a day on a procedural vote? So we can't find out who did it. Okay, they have not prosecuted a single person outside of Epstein and Maxwell.
Yep.
Not one, but we know Prince Andrew did it. We know so many other people. There's hundreds of victims. So now people are saying there's thousands of victims, over 1,000 girls. Man, is Epstein that prolific? No, there's other people. We know there's other people. So as the government keeps telling us, yeah, there's other people. Yeah, they raped those girls. So what? We're gonna cover up for them. And then they go, why are you guys so mad? All right, and lastly, look at about what Trump just did. When Ghislaine Maxwell is gonna go back up to appeal her case. When she goes to appeal her case, her lawyers are gonna say, Your Honor, the President of the United States that has all of the evidence at his disposal said the entire case is fake. You gotta let me go. And if any future government goes to prosecute the guys who actually did it, they're all gonna say, what do you mean? The president said all the evidence is fake. The president said all the evidence is fake. Now they're all gonna get out of jail free card. And now my wild theory. What changed was Trump? Because Trump never acted panicked about the list before. So he's acting panicked now. Who recently visited Trump? Oh, right, Netanyahu just came to town. And Trump's message about the Epstein files changed dramatically after Netanyahu came to town.
I mean, the message changed dramatically the day before he was set to meet with Netanyahu.
So, like now we're getting into wild theories, but they're forcing us.
How are they wild?
Because they won't tell us what the truth. No, this portion, because look, what did Netanyahu tell him? Because it's not like he can just order Trump, because remember, Trump said no to further bombing of Iran when Israel
and the Houthis.
And the Houthis, right? So he defied Netanyahu a bunch of times, and we gave him credit for that.
That's why I don't think his name is in the files, to be honest.
That's why I thought his name wasn't on the files.
Yeah.
So, but then Netanyahu comes to visit, and all of a sudden Trump's in a panic over his name being in the files. What if Trump didn't realize that they had tape on him?
I don't know.
And then Netanyahu comes and goes, hey, you want to see a piece of tape I just brought with me?
A country where its people do not trust the government, its institutions, is a disaster, okay? And it's hard to trust, especially the federal government at this very moment, given what appears to be a cover-up, okay, period.
Not appears to be. It's definitely a cover-up. The only question is who's covering it up for
what reason?
For what reason?
Exactly. Now, final thing that I'll note, this just developed. So apparently Thomas Massie, who's a libertarian, but obviously oftentimes votes with Republicans, just posted this on X saying that Rokana posted this on X saying that he and Thomas Massie are introducing the Epstein Files Transparency Act, a bipartisan bill to require the Attorney General to release the files within 30 days. So Massie is working on the rule. I mean, we'll see where that lands, but now we have two different votes in which Republicans have blocked an effort to release the Epstein files.
And what do we tell you all along? The two honest guys in Congress, Rokana and Tom Massie, one a Democrat, the other a Republican. And by implication, by the way, you almost can't trust anyone else in Congress. Like they're all sitting on their ass while Rokana and Tom Massie introduce like half the bills that we talk about and 100% of the bills that the American people agree with.
Right.
The ones that give away everything to the donor class, everybody else in Congress handles.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about settler violence in the West Bank because it's now impacting American media, including CNN. That and more coming up. Don't miss it.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
We play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, the defense contractors, the Wall Street, or the big pharma, and we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
Indisputable, exclusive. Exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lying.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
Such a fine line between stupid and clever.
All right, back on TYT. So I'm going to read some comments for you guys from members on Super Chat, because I think you guys have made a lot of interesting points. This is so timely. The Breaker of Walls wrote in, where's Thomas Massie to co-sign on the release of the Epstein Files Act? He would be a national hero. Well, maybe he heard you, brother, because then Massie signed up right afterwards, or about the same time as you were saying that, with Ro Khanna to actually get on this.
And when it came to the overall floor vote, we should look into it, because not a single Republican voted in favor. I'm guessing Massie was maybe absent. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think I heard that Marjorie Taylor Greene was making excuses about procedural votes. So like, but if Massie and Ro Khanna have a new bill, and then we're gonna put you to the test, right? So, okay, Seb Medic says, if it's true that there's a minute of video missing every night, wouldn't that be so convenient for anybody to do whatever they want during that minute? Of course, let alone the 2 minutes and 49 seconds that were apparently edited out, let alone the fact that it doesn't even show the hallway or the prison cell. It just shows a common area, and they even bungle that. You know, the more I think about it, Anna, so when did they, in a panic, say, oh, there's no files at all, we're done with this? And there was no need to say it right now out of nowhere, right?
What was the catalyst? We want to know what the catalyst was.
What the catalyst?
Yeah.
Right as Netanyahu came to town, and then all of a sudden Trump's in a panic about not being on the list. So, I mean, that is, Okay, let's see what happens. Cuckoo's Nest wrote in earlier about a critique, but I want to address it because it's about this topic, and I want to tell you guys why we're covering it. So he said, 10-year member here, you're reporting the many instances where the right wing has agreed with the left. You've also reported that Epstein revolt a lot. 90% of yesterday's show were those stories. Reporting those 2 stories is growing old. There are 2 more important stories: the Gestapo ICE terrorizing people, 90% of whom are innocent, and Supreme Court shadow docket rulings, blooming fascist state. So, brother, here's the situation, okay? So those stories are important, and we do cover them. And so we've covered the immigration story a lot. We're going to continue to cover it. We cover the Supreme Court a lot, etc. But why are we focusing so much on this Epstein case? Oh my God, it's gigantic. Because look, you have to understand, this is really important, guys. Once Trump loses the trust of his base, he's not going to be able to get it back. Then just like when the curtain was revealed on Biden and people realized, oh right, he can't finish a debate, he can't finish sentences, he was toast, right? So now the right wing is seeing, oh, I see his lies now. And I literally see people in the comment section, etc., going, wait a minute, I'm starting to see more lies. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because once the curtain is lifted, you see all the lies. We can't spend enough time on this.
For me, that part of it is important, but it's just the cherry on top. For me, I want to know if our foreign policy is currently being dictated by a foreign country that has blackmail on our politicians who might be literal pedophiles. That's what I want to know. To me, that's very important.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know that. Yeah, it's monumentally important because it's not. Again, look, the pedophile thing on its own is already gigantic, but who controls our government, brother? Who controls our government? That's the most important thing, and that's what we got to figure out. And that this story might be a harbinger that tells us who's controlling our government. I don't know a story bigger than that.
Yeah.
So, okay, by the way, Stephen Belgrad, Jason Jalonik, and Patrick Kishore, thank you for signing up through the join button below. We love having a stronger, bigger TYT community support each other. Justin Othertracken wrote in earlier, I got my comment read on the main show, so excited. Justin, that's 2 now.
Wow.
Okay, so I'll just read one last nice one. Guy Hadsel says, we are so blessed with a bench across the whole TYT stratosphere, hosts with varying quality takes on the news, but it just feels so good that yin and yang are back together. Anna, and a lot of hearts.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it does feel good to do it together, but I love all the guys you saw, Jordan, Sharon, Yaz, Maz, Was. It's so many of them, almost all of them are on Rebel headquarters, so make sure you're checking that out. When John comes on the show, Damage Report, Rashad, Indisputable, check out all the shows. You know what, if you go on tyt.com, you could just get the whole 24-hour channel. So that's a great way of checking it out. All right,
we got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll give you that story on CNN getting targeted by settlers in the West Bank. That story is wild. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
All right, back on TYT. Mander Pander Salamander writes in on YouTube Super Chat. Jank, I just finished your book and I absolutely loved it. Everyone should read it. Well, thank you for saying that, brother. I appreciate it. You can get it on shoptyt.com. I have the autographed versions too, but or you could just look up Justice is Coming online. All right. And I really appreciate that comment. I really do. I spent a long time on it. There's so many good nuggets in there that people really need to know. So thanks for reading it. I appreciate it. All right, Titan writes in again. He says sarcastically, "It's me again, your friendly Israeli government hater, with at least a wink in there. Please tell me you all have seen the viral video of a French council member pretending to be assaulted during a pro-Palestine rally in November 24th. I'm just now seeing it, LOL. These people have a mental disorder."
I actually haven't seen that, no.
No, part of the reason I read it, brother, is because I haven't seen it. So because of you, I'm gonna go check it out, okay? So look, I don't know if we're gonna get to it, but we have a Holocaust expert that weighed in on this, and he's Israeli-American professor. And he says, yeah, definitely a genocide.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that later in the show today.
And he's like, Israel is ruining every piece of goodwill they had from the Holocaust. So they're not gonna get to say Holocaust anymore after this. I mean, that was I couldn't believe an Israeli-American professor. Actually, I could believe it, because so many good people that are Israeli-American, Israelis, Jewish, etc., and all across the spectrum are now getting to a point where it's a tsunami. They're all saying, stop, stop, stop. This is insane. Wait till you hear what Ehud Olmert said. Okay, that's later in the show. Chim510 writes in on YouTube member section. Keep up the great work, thank you. Liz Grimwood says, I love vintage dresses as well, and I love you and how you aren't afraid of saying how you feel. Showing emotion shows passion. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and Marcos Dominguez writes in, what am I gonna do, push back? He says, Rogan said, yes, push back, dude. Do you believe in free speech or not? Call him out in front of your audience. God, Rogan is so frustrating. So he's talking about when Rogan said about the Kash Patel interview. I mean, what was I gonna do, push back? I agree with Marcos. Yeah, I don't think Rogan's a fascist or any of that stuff. But yeah, brother, you are supposed to push back from time to time.
Yeah.
Okay, or a lot actually, but I'll take time to time. Danny Sam writes in TYT.com, I knew this administration would be a nightmare, but I didn't think it would escalate this quickly. This has been the most insane 6 months, 3.5 years ago.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna get through it. Art Guy says, not a huge fan of Superman, but if he's gonna punch Israel in the face, I gotta see it. And he kind of literally does, in a sense. So it's amazing. Rap says, I listened to ex-mob guys that spent time in that prison. They said it's impossible for a high-profile prisoner like Epstein to kill himself. They have cameras in their cells and are watched 24/7. Except apparently the most important prisoner that's ever been there. Navinik says, MAGA built up Trump for years as this crusader of truth. Now they realize Trump is a crusader of cover-up. And they do, and that's part of the reason why it's so important. Back on TYT, Chang and Anna with you guys, more news.
Well, we got to give you a little update on what's transpiring with Israeli settlers in the West Bank, and warning, this story is disturbing, even more disturbing than some of the stories that we've shared in the past. Take a look.
Hundreds of Palestinians turned out for the funeral of Sayfullah Mossad on Sunday. The 20-year-old was born in Florida to parents of Palestinian heritage.
As we head to the location where Saif's body was retrieved, a white vehicle suddenly appears behind us.
We have a group of settlers who are now following us in their vehicle. They've put their masks on as well, which is a concerning indication.
At an intersection, the settlers get out and try to pelt our vehicle.
You know, every once in a while we come across a story that makes me understand the value of the Second Amendment, and this would be one of them, because Israeli settlers have been raining terror on Palestinians and in some cases even killing American citizens in the West Bank with impunity. And they're so emboldened that now they're attacking American press that's reporting out of the area. So while reporting on the brutal killing of an American citizen in the West Bank, CNN journalist Jeremy Diamond and his team were actually attacked by Israeli settlers. And it's yet another example of the impunity that these settlers get to enjoy, because oftentimes they are provided cover by either the IDF or the Israeli government. Now, as we talked about yesterday, Saif Musalet, a 20-year-old American from Florida, was beaten to death by settlers while visiting relatives in the occupied West Bank. And according to the family, a group of settlers blocked an ambulance from reaching him for about 3 hours.
Because they're religious fundamentalists.
No.
They're lunatics.
They're terrorists. Call them what they are. They are terrorists. As many as 5 Americans have been killed in the West Bank since October 7th. And our government hasn't done anything about it. Nothing. They keep sending our taxpayer dollars to Israel. They keep sending bombs to Israel. I mean, we keep doing whatever Israel wants, but Israel provides cover for these settlers who have killed American citizens. How are we okay with this?
Okay, guys, think about a different country. So imagine Syria had killed 5 different American citizens in 5 different incidents, right? Or China had killed 5 different Americans in 5 different incidents. And they say, yeah, we beat your Americans to death. So what? What are you gonna do about it?
And prevented an ambulance from reaching them.
Yeah, and we made sure they bled to death after we beat them within an inch of their life, and we wouldn't let the ambulances in. So what? What are you gonna do about it, right? Do you think America would be like, oh, no, we're good. Okay, I'm so sorry, China. Oh, here's $30 billion. Remember, since October 7th, we've given them not just the $4 billion a year, but on top of that, we're sneaking in $500 million into the Pentagon budget that Marjorie Taylor Greene tried to take out the other day. And we've given them $30 billion extra for the genocide. Oh, you guys are slaughtering innocent Palestinians. Oh, and you're murdering Americans too. Here's our gift to you, $30 billion. Imagine China kills 5 Americans and we give them $30 billion. It is inconceivable. If you say that AIPAC doesn't run Washington, you're a moron, okay? Yeah. So like in mainstream media, look, Jeremy Diamond, we've given a lot of credit to. Trey Yingst, we've given a lot of credit to. He's on Fox News. Those two have been super brave, doing great reporting. When we see great reporting, we love it and we give credit where credit is due. The rest of mainstream media is a joke.
Totally, I mean,
like you don't notice that these guys are murdering Americans and we're giving them money to do it? You don't notice that the lunatic terrorist settlers keep murdering Palestinians for no reason in the West Bank, having nothing to do with Gaza. You didn't notice that Gaza is leveled, that they've destroyed all of Gaza and they're trying to move them out, and you're still equivocating and people calling people anti-Semites? You monsters!
Like I've said before, I'll say it, call me an anti-Semite, I don't care, okay? Those are our people. Those are Americans who are getting killed by these emboldened terrorists, okay? That enjoy the euphemism of Israeli settlers. No, they're terrorists. Okay, yes, they're religious fundamentalists, they're terrorists, and they are provided cover by the Israeli government. So what does that say about the Israeli government, which we're funding, we're supporting, and we're sending bombs to? Absolutely disgusting. By the way, let's not forget the fact that after October 7th, I can't remember if it was Ben Gvir or Smotrich, but there were images and videos of them passing out assault weapons to settlers, to these terrorists, to further terrorize Palestinians in the West Bank.
So when this happened relatively early on in the conflict, I remember I had a debate/discussion. It was a number of hosts. I can't remember what show it was. And one of the hosts, he was a pretty gentle debater. He seemed like a good guy, but he said, you know, I grew up in the settlements. My parents are settlers. Are you saying all settlers
are terrorists?
Are wrong? And I'm like,
yes,
yeah, of course I am, right?
That's what they
because the settlers, the whole point of the settlers is let's go steal Arab land.
100%.
Because our God told us 3,000 years ago, we think.
It was promised to us.
It was promised to us because we're the chosen people. If Arabs said that or Muslims said that, no, Allah promised that to us. That's why we're murdering you and taking your land. Everyone would call them what? Terrorists, right? So I said, yeah, brother, I'm sorry, but that's right. And I said, so what was the ideology you grew up with? And then he admitted, yeah, we were taught to hate the Arabs and that it was our land. And by the way, what's the Israeli propaganda? Oh, we can't let the Palestinians have a state. They were taught to hate us.
By you guys, by the way.
Yeah, but because you're occupying them.
Yeah, I know.
You're putting them in concentration camps, okay? But meanwhile, they're taught to hate Arabs to steal their land.
Exactly.
God damn it, man. They should get nothing. Jesus, wake up, America.
So a second man, I should note, who wasn't an American citizen, was also killed by this attack. Mohammed al-Shalabi, 23-year-old, was killed in the same incident. So Jeremy Diamond from CNN, and to your point about media, Cenk, you're right overall. I think the media has been terrified to cover what's happening in the Middle East accurately, with a few exceptions. And I want to give Jeremy Diamond in particular credit because he's done really great reports, on the ground, and this is a good example. Now, Diamond and his team were in the West Bank to cover this story about the American citizen getting slaughtered by these Israeli settlers. And instead, they ended up becoming targets of the same terrorists that we're talking about here. So let's go to the next video and you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about.
But we managed to approach a nearby Israeli border police vehicle and the settlers turn around.
He got out of the car with the gun or something? No, he's trying to get rocks. Shoot.
Everyone okay?
Yeah, shoot.
Go, drive, keep driving. The masked men smashed the rear windshield of our car, but we managed to speed off unharmed.
No.
They turned. It is just a small window into the reality here.
If it would have took us 5 more seconds, we all would have been beaten with these
sticks. You think they would have beaten us?
Yes, sir.
But your son was also killed.
In January 2024. By a settler, simply just being there barbecuing.
Israeli police tell us that they have opened an investigation into the attack on our team, and they say that they, quote, take such matters extremely seriously. We will be monitoring to see what the outcome of that investigation is, because Issa, as you know, there has been enormous levels of impunity for these Israeli settlers in the West Bank.
I just want to refer back to the comment I made about the Second Amendment and the importance.
No. Palestinians are not allowed to defend themselves.
They're not allowed to defend themselves.
No, only the Israelis can defend themselves by starting wars and by occupying other people's land and by stealing it. That's how they defend themselves. But God forbid, if you try to defend yourself and against an Israeli occupation, you'll get smeared as terrorists from here to eternity by the liars in American media and all of Western media that'll say, how dare the Palestinians resist the Israeli occupation? They should know that the Israelis are the chosen people and they should surrender to them. They're lowly Muslims and they're supposed to be beaten to death. And if they protest, terrorists. And if you're anti-Semite, F the media. All of American media that has been perpetuating these viciously racist and bigoted lies against Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims my whole life. All of you guys are guilty while you chase around mythical anti-Semitism. Oh, they criticize Israel, anti-Semite. Oh my God, they said something about Netanyahu, anti-Semite. Well, they're protesting for peace, anti-Semite. While you go do that over and over and over again, there's massive bigotry against Muslims. The murder of Muslim children over and over. Do you know, it's every time this goddamn meeting, do you denounce Hamas? Denounce anyone fighting back against Israel, right? Okay, fine, we denounce them, they do something terrible. You know how many people they killed? Civilians they killed on October 7th? 815. That's a big number, that's terrible. You know how many children under the age of 1, babies, Israel has killed since October 7th? 870. More than all the civilians Hamas killed. So if Hamas are the worst terrorists, what does that make Israel? The murderer of babies. Oh, no, you can't say that, anti-Semite, right? No, I don't care. I don't care what you call me. Stop murdering babies.
Stop murdering innocent people.
All of these innocent people. You killed a stadium full of children, 17,000 children.
Yeah.
Everybody says they care about the children, unless it's Palestinian children, in which case, anti-Semite. You don't care about bigotry. You are bigotry, American media. You are all bigots. With the exception of wonderful people like Jeremy Diamond and Trey Yingst.
Yep. By the way, Jeremy Diamond looking real good. Get it, boy. Keep getting it. All right, just adding a little bit of lightness to this terrible story. But of course, the foreign press has weighed in on this, essentially condemning what has happened to Jeremy Diamond and CNN in this attack. By the way, he posted a photo of the shattered back window of the vehicle that they were in, and of course, it was shattered by these terrorists. Now, Jeremy Diamond reported that the American who was just killed by Israeli settlers / terrorists, Saif, his father has come out to share his thoughts and demand justice for his son. Now, do I think that there will be justice for his son? Well, given the 4 other Americans who have been killed in a similar way in the West Bank, no, I don't think that there's gonna be justice. That's unfortunately the situation we're dealing with. But let's hear what he has to say here.
We want justice. His father, Kamel, was home in Florida, where he runs an ice cream shop with his son, when he got the call that Saif had been attacked by settlers.
You never think that it's your son or anything like that who is this happening to? And then I got word that it was my son. He was hit, he was beaten, he lost conscience, but nobody could get to him. Ambulance couldn't come in. Why? Because the IDF restricted that. The IDF blocked that.
So you hold the Israeli military?
I hold the Israeli military just as responsible as the settlers and the American government for not doing anything about this.
The State Department said it is aware of Saif's death, but declined to comment further on calls for an investigation.
So far, there's only been one American official who has weighed in on what happened to Saif, and that's, unfortunately, a pretty disgusting individual, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, who says that he's asked Israel to aggressively investigate this.
Oh, I'm sure they're right on it. They're working around the clock on it. You know how many settlers have been held accountable, or IDF soldiers held accountable for those American deaths in the West Bank? 0. They're never held accountable because they're like, oh, who cares? We control America. So we can murder their citizens anytime we like.
Guys, the IDF literally fired shots at a group of international diplomats as they were visiting Jenin. Israel said they are going to investigate it. What happened to that investigation?
What happened to the investigation of every hospital and school that they destroyed? Do you know that right now they're going through Gaza, and not only are they bombing all the buildings, but they're bulldozing them. They're bulldozing all of them. Well, what does bulldozing a home have anything to do with finding Hamas?
It's Hamas's fault.
Yeah, I'm sure. They use the home as a shield, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I'm so sick of my money being robbed from me by the American government, by the sick American politicians, robbed from me to go pay for the slaughter of those innocent children by a terrorist government of Israel. Yep. You call me anything you like, but I fight genocides, okay? I fight it if it's happening to Jews. I fight it if it's happening to Palestinians. I fight it no matter who it's happening to. And if you're not fighting against this genocide, you're sick. There's something wrong with you. And you're a bigot and you're a racist, okay? So go ahead. Every time somebody calls anybody fighting against this genocide an anti-Semite, I'm gonna call them a racist 1,000 times over. Because they don't give a damn about any life but precious, precious Israeli lives. Oh, those settlers, poor little terrorists, murdering anyone they like. No, I don't give a goddamn about them. Stop sending our money for this murder and slaughter and genocide. Stop sending our money. Israel is literally robbing us. They're robbing us. They robbed you. Every time you go to work, Israel takes a portion of it. Why are we under an obligation to give over $300 billion?
Because we might have pedophiles running the government.
Yeah, even if that government was saintly, like Norway's a perfectly lovely government. We haven't given them $300 billion because we don't owe them. But we give Israel over $300 billion and they still say, you owe us. No, we don't owe you a goddamn thing. And after this genocide, the world doesn't owe you a single thing, okay? Nothing. You've used up all of your goodwill. It's gone. You are now no longer the victim. You are the villain. You are a worldwide villain, the latest to commit a genocide, and all of you are going to go to a museum, and God help you, Netanyahu, if there's ever an honest American leader, because then we're going to pull your protection, and I can't wait to see you in the effing Hague. And Ben Gvir and Smotrich, if those guys are not getting Nuremberg trialed, then we failed as a society.
Make executions great again. We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Norway.
All right, Michael Nathan wrote in on TYT.com. If there's no archaeological evidence to the Exodus, what does it do with the so-called promised land promise? So guys, I want to tell you guys a couple of things here that are important. So I'm going to take some time to do it. So number one, you saw a great video the other day that explains biblically that Israel is actually not in the Bible. It is not the kingdom of where Jews came from. I know that's mind-blowing, but it's totally true. Judah is where the Jewish tribes come from. Judah split from Israel, and in fact, they opposed each other. So the idea that the descendants of Judah are a part of Israel is actually factually incorrect in the Bible. So now, I don't really care because I'm an atheist, so to me, those are all interesting fables, right? But the reason why it's relevant is because the main claim that Israel makes is, it's okay for us to steal Arab land because God told us to do it 3,000 years ago. But it turns out God didn't say that. According to the Old Testament, that is not true at all. The whole thing's based on a lie. But I also saw a video today from an Israeli anthropologist, and he said, the whole thing's an excuse to take the land anyway. And he's a good guy, he's explaining, he's like, what is this? He said, look, you can't just go into some other country or some other land and go, I'm just gonna steal your land now, right? I'm just gonna take it. So you have to have an excuse. So Israel came up with the excuse of, oh, trust us, bro. God gave it to us 3,000 years ago. And then you look at the Bible, it turns out that's not even true, even if it were relevant, right? It's just an excuse to take their land. That's it, period. The whole thing's a goddamn robbery. They're planning to take 75% of Gaza now. And even Ehud Olmert today said, yeah, we're setting up a concentration camp there. That's a former Israeli prime minister being honest and being a good person and saying, yeah, that's a concentration camp we're setting up for the Palestinians. It's just disgusting. It's disgusting. Oh my, I can't believe we give them money. They come on, you're saying America, hey, good news, America, or Palestinians. We're all Palestinians now because we're occupied, and now they're killing Americans like they were killing Palestinians with no repercussions at all.
I mean, it's so infuriating. So, just back to the viewer, and I appreciate you watching the show for 10 years, wondering why we care so much about the Epstein files. Again, because if that theory that we have a government that does anything and everything Israel wants because Epstein was actually a big Mossad blackmail operation, that explains a lot of US foreign policy in the Middle East as it pertains to Israel particularly. And we need to know,
Yep. Box writes in, I'm pro Second Amendment, love it or hate it, it works. Mander Pander Salamander says, I'm a sister, but I'll forgive you, Cenk. Love your handle. Be Kind Dragon says, it's your passion and Anna's that keeps me tuned in. Michael Catalano says, amen, Anna, amen. Preach. I've been saying for years, if you want gun reform, then start with police reform because people who feel unsafe will never disarm themselves. Glad you're back. But if a Palestinian ever has a gun, they're not allowed to defend themselves at all. They'll be murdered immediately by the terrorist state of Israel. Young Turks. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna.
All right, I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about something former President Barack Obama had to say about the modern Democratic Party. Let's get into it.
We've heard a lot of talk about change this year. The question is, change to what? To me, change is a government that doesn't let banks and oil companies rip off the American people. Change is when we finally fix healthcare instead of just talking about it. Change is giving tax breaks to middle-class families instead of companies that send jobs overseas. Change is a president who brings people together. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message because this year, change has to be more than a slogan.
Does it?
Yeah, I can.
That was Obama's campaign ad back in 2008. And we're bringing it back up today because former President Barack Obama has some advice for modern day Democrats, the Democratic Party. And he was at a fundraising event for the DNC where he did share some very blunt advice. Now it's vague and doesn't really offer anything specific, but I'll let you judge for yourselves. I'll read a little bit of what was reported in regard to Obama's comments. So he says, quote, I think it's going to require a little bit less navel gazing and a little less whining and being in fetal positions. He's talking about the Democratic Party and how they've been behaving. And it's going to require Democrats to just toughen up. Don't tell me you're a Democrat, but you're kind of disappointed right now, so you're not doing anything. No, now is exactly the time that you get in there and do something.
I gotta pause right there.
No, one more, and then you can go off, okay? Don't say that you care deeply about free speech and then you're quiet. No, you stand up for free speech when it's hard. When somebody says something you don't like, but you still say, you know what, that person has the right to speak. What's needed now is courage.
Just please go away, okay? Just look, I'm so, at this point, I can't stand Obama anymore. So go back to the ad first. Okay, he said that old ad of, oh yeah, you gotta watch out for the bankers and the oil companies. Do you wanna know how full of crap Barack Obama is? So the bankers were his #1 donor in 2008. And you know what he did? Not only did he do a bailout of all the bankers, he let them keep their bonuses after they cost this country 12 million jobs. Keep their bonuses, they crashed the economy. They're miserable failures. Why are they getting bonuses from the American taxpayers? Why? Because Obama's corrupt. And Obama took money from the bankers So he took your hard-earned money and gave it to the bankers. Oil companies, they get $17 billion a year in subsidies, year after year. For 8 straight years, they got all those subsidies under Obama. What did you do, Obama? What did you do about the oil companies? You just kept giving it to them. In fact, my first major criticism of Obama was that he let the oil companies drill in the Gulf. And then there was a massive oil spill in the Gulf.
There sure
Why?
was.
Because he's a sellout. Because he works for the donor class. Now go to these comments. Why am I upset about this? First of all, what's this gobbledygook? Have the courage to say it. Say what? I'm not gonna say it. I just, whatever you think is the right thing is the thing that I appear to be doing because I'm a really good politician, but I never say anything. What do you want us to do, Barack? You were president for 8 years, you were enormously popular. Say it. Oh, you wanna talk about courage? You don't have the courage to do anything. So you don't even have the courage to tell us what to do. Do you have a plan? Do you have an idea? No, I will speak in generalities and tell you not to navel gaze and say these general gobbledygook words. And by the way, who's he giving this speech to?
To donors who are
to
probably
donors, his best friends. And he goes, and when he says you got to do something, this is not the time to sit on the sidelines, etc. You know what he's saying? He's telling the donors, give me more money.
He's telling the donors who are probably feeling uneasy about the fact that Democrats are deeply unpopular. I mean, their base has turned on them to some extent. They have a super low approval rating. And so if you're a donor, are you gonna feel comfortable providing more money to a party that's deeply unpopular and not favored by a lot of voters? Probably not. So you have Obama come in and do this pretend tough talk for the Democratic Party to kind of give this illusion that no, we're whipping these Democrats back to shape. But honestly, even during the Obama administration, as Jake is alluding to, the Democratic Party abandoned their promises. And it was after the 2008 economic collapse in which so many Americans across the country were getting foreclosed on, as the very financial institutions and banks that put out those predatory loans or gave out those predatory loans got rewarded with a bailout.
Yeah.
And this was under Obama, okay? So Obama really paved the way for Trump's presidency. Americans were rightfully furious with the government and they wanted actual change. So you have this guy coming down a golden elevator, calling out all of that corruption. Obviously, he's corrupt himself, we all know that. But he comes out, he calls it all out. He seems to be authentic, he seems to be sincere, and he changes the paradigm for the GOP. And that was because of Obama and the Democratic Party paving the way, creating a perfect environment for someone like Trump to thrive.
Yeah, I gotta say more. First of all, the quote I'm talking about is he says, so you're kind of disappointed right now, so you're not doing anything. No, now is exactly the time you get in there and do something.
Do what?
No, the reason, what he means, it's obvious because he's talking to donors, is do something means give me money, give me money, give me money. That's the something that he wants them to do. And he's not keeping it for himself, I wanna be clear. He's raising money for other corporate Democrats. So then I was curious, like, hey, what's he gonna do with this? He's like, oh, you need to help Spangenberger, or whatever the hell her name is.
Spanberger.
Yeah, Spamberger. Okay,
Spankenberger.
Spankenberger, whatever the hell she's like a CIA agent, right? She's like the most corporate establishment Democrat, exactly the kind of loser Democrat that got us into this mess in the first place. And he's like, give more to the loser Democrats, my side. And now when you say, hey, wait a minute, Obama won twice. Yeah, I know. So he came in, he ran a great campaign against Hillary and McCain. So he comes in, then he just all of a sudden does nothing for 4 years, right? To be fair, he did Obamacare, which, by the way, yes, was a right-wing plan from the Heritage Foundation to just do a little pressure release, right? But don't fix it, don't even do a public option, okay? And mandate that they buy from us private insurance, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So then I thought, well, maybe he won't win the second time around. But when the campaign came around, back came Obama the lion. He was shredding Mitt Romney, right? Whenever it's about Obama, he's the greatest warrior I've ever seen. Whenever it's about you, he's like, I couldn't find my walking boots. Like, I couldn't do it. Oh, why don't you do something? Why don't you stop navel gazing? Do you know how many seats, I said loser. Do you know how many seats we lost under Obama, the Democratic Party? 1,000 seats nationwide. And did Obama care? Did Rahm Emanuel care? Did any of those corporate Democrats care? No, because they were fine. Their own careers were fine. The Democratic Party burned. They're like, yeah, but did the donor check clear? Donors. So, and Obama's like Israel. When you criticize Israel, everybody goes anti-Semite, so you're not allowed to criticize Israel. Obama, you criticize him, they're like, he was the first black president, racist. Now, I don't give a goddamn what you say.
I know.
Obama was a donor servant, that's it.
Yeah, yes, definitely. We are all very disappointed in Obama. And to your point, Cenk, about how he's trying to get the donors to donate more. I think this next quote kind of solidifies that fact. So he told attendees at this fundraiser, which by the way included New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, Democratic gubernatorial candidate Representative Mikey Sherrill, and DNC Chair Ken Martin, to stop worrying about finding a leader for the party and focus on the midterms. He says, stop looking for the quick fix. Stop looking for the Messiah. You have great candidates running races right now. Please give us money. Please give us money.
Do we?
Yeah, support these candidates or those candidates, Obama said, calling out the New Jersey and Virginia elections, according to excerpts of his remarks. And he described Sherrill and former Virginia Representative Abigail Spanberger, who again, Cenk was referring to earlier, who's been running for governor in her state as powerful spokespersons for a pragmatic, common sense desire to help people and who both have remarkable track records of service.
No, they don't.
Yeah, okay, but
Spanberger's done nothing.
Notice the lack of specificity here. And by the way, I just want to quickly end on the polling, because Obama's sentiment at this event echoes some of these polling results, showing that people find the Democratic Party out of touch, woke, weak. But Obama was kind of part of that. He
Not kind of part of it. Obama is a critical part of the weakness. Never fights back against Republicans, never fights back against the donor class. And then he had the audacity to run on hope and change. He delivered almost no change and extinguished hope. But hey, he collected a lot of checks. And now he lives in his castle in Nantucket or wherever the hell he is, or Martha's Vineyard or some fancy ass place. And the only thing he goes to is to lecture young black men over, you should vote for us, the corporate Democrats. It's your fault, black people. I'm lecturing you, I'm the first black president. Okay, no, I'm not interested in that. Go collect some more goddamn checks. And the only other place you ever see him is at a fundraiser. Wow, you're helping so much. You're so in the fight, President Obama. Yeah. Okay, he's part of the people that ruined the Democratic Party. Corporate to the tilt.
Operation Joy is next. We'll see you there, tyt.com/join to become a member, because you have to be a member to be part of the Joy.